I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we're going to discuss what the USMNT's top New Year's resolution should be for 2026, along with some other things we're hoping to see from the team over the next 12 months. To help me do that, I've invited Chuck Booth to join the show. Chuck is a soccer writer at CBS Sports. So Chuck, let's start with this just first big picture question. What do you think the top New Year's resolution should be for the USMNT in 2026?
So it's kind of funny because stay healthy. I think we've established that the first 11 for the U.S. men's national team is in a pretty good place. Unfortunately, with the MCL tear for Tyler Adams, it's another question on when are we going to get to see that first 11, just because of the fact that he's now out for 2 to 3 months. That still doesn't necessarily put him out for the March friendlies against Belgium and Portugal, but it does definitely threaten his fitness. And depth is where all the questions come in for the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me you chose health because, you and I are talking just right after, Chris Richards went down with an injury. Hopefully that seems to be maybe just a laceration on his foot. So we're hoping that's not too serious. But then Tyler Adams recently went down with his injury. And so these are top players, two of the best players in the starting 11. And they're both injured right now, and so I can see why that's top of mind for you.
Yeah, and it's like just both are essentially irreplaceable because to replace Tyler Adams, Poch had to pull out a back three, and then to replace Chris Richards, truly, what do you do? Because there's barely 3 reliable center backs, let alone 4.
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, center back has been one of these positions where it seemed there was the most uncertainty, around the USMNT, and we were kind of waiting for Chris Richards to step up, and become that number one center back, which he has done, in 2025. And there's still a lot of questions on who's going to be next to him, how long Tim Ream can go, but we felt like at least Chris Richards has arrived in the place that we had always wanted him to be. And so to think about, again, it seem like it's going to be a serious injury. I'm hearing that he's going to be back, in January. He had some stitches on his foot due to a laceration, whatever. But yeah, the idea of him not being part of a team, would be devastating. And I guess to add on to your point a little bit more, I was so desperate to see what this team can do at the World Cup. And so I want to see what their best team can do at the World Cup. You know what I mean? I don't want to wonder, well, what could we have done? I literally one, because I'm a fan of the team, but I'm also just curious, what is the level of this team? And if we go into the World Cup with some serious injuries, we're missing some key players, which is almost inevitable, but you kind of find yourself asking, what if? And I want to see these guys tested and truly see, what they can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, your answer surprised me a little bit, though, because I thought in a World Cup year, your first resolution would be the team needs to make it X far or to this stage. Well, and I have a feeling we're going to talk.
I was going to say we are going to talk about that. So
yeah. So I think I'm going to save that because I do think we're gonna talk about that a little bit later because the resolutions and goals seem to be a little bit different in World Cup years. You're starting to think about results, but I think staying healthy, that's so important that we can just. I feel like the last World Cup in 2022 the team arrived pretty healthy. Then they were very hurt. Fortunate.
Then they got beat up during the World Cup.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's next thing. I want you to think about all of these players in the U.S. player pool. You know, Joe Scally and Gio Reyna, they're at a cafe in Gladbach, and they're like, "Hey, let's go to this. Let's go talk about what our New Year's resolutions, are. Or Serginho and Ricardo are in Eindhoven. They're like, "Hey, man, come on over to my place. We're going to talk about our resolutions this year." Give me one player from the pool and what you think their top resolution should be for 2026.
So this is another kind of funny one. And part of my even reason for thinking about this is a bit of Tim Ream's fault, just because recently he's been talking a lot about the fact that even ahead of the 2022 World Cup, he wasn't really in the actual build up for that World Cup squad. He made it at the last moment and ended up being a starter for the US men's national team at the World Cup. So that kind of makes you think, who could be this cycle's Tim Ream, especially since like there are enough holes in the roster that someone could end up doing it. And the first place that I think, and this is going back to center back, is Noah Kai Banks, because when he was called up and not actually used during the September international window, he wasn't actually playing very much for Augsburg in the Bundesliga. And if you haven't been checking in on them, he has started every single match basically since October for the club. Um, so for him, it's really to just keep doing what he's doing, because even during that time, he scored his first goal for the club, because you really never know when a player like him is going to be needed.
Yeah. And I remember Poch alluding to that when he called them into camp at one of the press conferences or in one of his interviews. They were like, what do you think about this guy? And he's like, well, he's young. I think, what is he, 18, 19 years old?
Yeah, 19.
19,
Yeah.
okay. He's like, he's young, but with these young players who are top talents, it's like one day they're young and then like one day they just seem to blossom and all of a sudden they're a top center back in the league. And you don't know when that's going to happen. So they wanted to bring him in and kind of know him a little bit in case that does happen in the run
Yeah.
up to the World Cup.
And it's kind of fascinating even just to see the switch in his playing time since that moment, because it also makes you wonder, like, were there things that he worked on with Pochettino that he took back to the club? Because, again, one of the big things about Pochettino would be hard to see during his actual tenure for this team is he's always been great at youth development. So if there is someone to be able to give you advice on what you need to take back, like, there are much worse people to get it from than him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good shout. So Noah Kai Banks' resolution to keep getting better and to try and make the World Cup roster. I would imagine there's a lot of players. I was kind of joking about, them sitting down and coming up with their resolutions, but you would think there's probably 30, 40, 50 players, if they do come up with resolutions, that are putting that as their top New Year's resolution of the year is just to make the final roster. Okay, so I'm going to give you mine. And I thought about a couple of these. I thought about just Tyler Adams getting healthy, Gio Reyna just starting to get some production at Gladbach now that he's starting to play more, but he's not getting any goals or assists. I even thought about Christian Pulisic stepping it up another level, but I'm going to go with Ricardo Pepi, actually. And because I still think that he's not back to his full fitness and top form after the long being away from an injury for a long time. He's starting to score some goals at PSV. You can see him like ramping it up. But I'd like to see his New Year's resolution for this year to get to 20 plus goals in all competitions for the 2025-2026 European season. Last year he had 17, playing in he missed out on a good part of the year because of the injury, but he was playing in a backup role for a good portion of it as well. He currently has 9. Going into the season, I thought if he's going to be the starter at PSV, 20 plus goals should be pretty much a certainty for him, but he got off to a slow start. Like I said, now he has 9. He's ramping up. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I don't really understand like PSV's just treatment of the striker position with like Gus Till getting so much time as the starter, because you did think, especially with Pepe getting the 9, that it would be him that gets it. And I think, and I believe actually, of like basically all players with 5 appearances, that Pepe has the best goals per minutes ratio in the Champions League, because he already has 3 goals in like 149 minutes played.
Yeah, he's tearing it up in the Champions League. I mean, I just think he got off to a little bit of a slow start. He had some little minor injuries that maybe had something to do with the knee, maybe not. But there came a point where Gustil was starting and scoring goals and PSV were winning. And I think the coach just decided, I'm just going to keep rolling with that, but now Pepe has like got his form back. He's banging in goals now again. And so he's been able to, I think, change Peter Bosch's mind a little bit. But I don't know. I would really like to see. I've been so happy with Balogun and how he's looked, and I think he's the number one on the depth chart right now. But I still think Ricardo Pepi has so much to offer, and if we can get both Balogun and Pepi at top in their top form heading into the World Cup, it's just going to be so good to have 2 strikers at that level.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
especially even considering that, like, for Monaco, more often than not, Balogun does play with another striker. So that still just gives Pochettino more options on how he wants to set up the side.
Yeah. And then I'm also thinking about Pepe's long-term future. I think 20 plus goals, a good World Cup. He's setting himself up for a potential monster transfer in the summer to, a big club. I mean, if PSV is willing to let him go. But I mean, he could be playing at a huge club, and I think that would be good for obviously his development, but good for the US men's national team as well. Not that PSV isn't a big club already, but I'm talking about he's been rumored to go to the Premier League before. I think there were rumors at like West Ham before, but I'm a Pepe fan too, so I'm a little partial and a little biased, as well. But that's who I went with this year is Ricardo Pepe for my top resolution. 20 plus goals. I'd like to get to 30, but I feel like I'm getting a little greedy right there, and he got off to too slow of a start. Okay, let's go on to another guy and talk about what we think his top New Year's resolution should be, and that's Mauricio Pochettino. What do you think his top resolution should be for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we start getting into the performance-based resolutions, because his has to be to make the round of 16, especially just considering he's stressed so often that it does not matter what this team is doing heading into the World Cup. It matters what they do at the World Cup. So he's kind of already put pressure on himself, not that he needed it, with it being a World Cup on home soil when you're the head coach of one of the host nations. But he's already set the bar quite high. And now 2026 is going to be to show that he can actually reach it.
Round of 16. Why did you stop there? Why not further?
Because this team's not good enough to make it further. Like they need so many things to actually break their way to go past the round of 16. Like, it would be great to like see a semifinals appearance or something, but like when you look at where even the top 10 to 15 actual teams, not by FIFA rankings because they aren't real, in the world are compared to the US men's national team, there's still a pretty big gap, even when you're looking at what their best players can do. And just at a situation like a World Cup, like, you need everything to break your way if you're going to go on like a Morocco or Croatia run. But even when you look at Morocco and Croatia, their best players during those runs were arguably still performing at a higher level than the best performing US men's national team player right now.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking. Okay. Yeah, there's certainly not a lot of data to tell you that the U.S. can go beyond the round of 16. And if I remember correctly, if everything plays out, and it never does, it never plays out how you think it's going to play out. But
Yeah.
like, if it does play out, then we could, if we won our group, get, I think, a third place team in the round of 32. Then we could potentially get Belgium in the round of 16 is how I remember it. So to get beyond the round of 16, you're going to have to beat a team like Belgium. It was Netherlands in 2022. It's been Ghana before. It was Mexico when they actually did, make it to the quarterfinals. So, there's a wide variety, but it looks like we're going to get somebody like a Belgium or somebody who's beat a Belgium in the group stage. I still think, for me, if we're talking about results, and I think, okay, after the World Cup, what result would be needed for me to feel satisfied? For me to be like, okay, maybe we didn't get as far as I wanted, but how far do we need to get till I feel like, okay, we made some progress, we did something good? And for me, it's still the quarterfinal, making it to a quarterfinal. For the longest time, I mean, after 2002 and we made a quarterfinal, I kept thinking, all right, when are we going to take the next step? When are we going to take the next step? And, we're going on 24 years now, since I've been waiting for us to take the next step, and we still haven't. So at this point, I'd be happy to get back to a quarterfinal. And also, especially if getting to a quarterfinal meant that along the way, we beat an elite team in the knockout round.
Yeah.
Like a Belgium, like a European team, a South American team, because that's something we've never really done in the knockout rounds of a World Cup either. I mean, like I said, the only knockout round game we've ever won, correct me if I'm wrong, but was the round of 16 against Mexico. So it's when we played a CONCACAF. And I don't want to take anything away. I mean, anybody's going to be a tough match, but we have a hard time when we run up against these European opponents in the World Cup. I don't think we've had too many South American opponents in the World Cup, but it's like, I would love to see this team, if they could beat an elite team in the knockout rounds and make it to a quarterfinal, that would be a huge step for me.
I mean, it's also just interesting, even looking back at 2022, because things feel different if you don't run out of steam and lose 3-1 to the Netherlands. Like, even if it's a close fought match, I think the general feeling around everything is much different. And I know that's a bit tougher just because of the fact that so many players had so many minutes under their belts, and that's why like depth is so important for this World Cup. And honestly, one of the biggest things on why that exact scenario shouldn't happen again, because even during these friendlies, Pochettino has used a ton of players. And so even if there's a scenario where like he needs to rest like one or two starters, he should be able to do that without experiencing too much of a drop off from the team. It's just the question on like where those starters are.
Yeah. I do think Poch has built a lot more depth with this team. I mean, Greg Berhalter in last World Cup seemed like he trusted maybe 13, 14 players. And to your point, by the time we got to the Netherlands game, there was players who had started every game, played 90 minutes, and they just looked a little bit tired. So I do think that's going to be better. And so I don't know. We'll see. But that's kind of what I'm thinking for results. You're sounds like you're going to be pretty happy if they make it to a round of 16 match. For me to feel really satisfied, they're going to have to make it to quarterfinals and beat a good opponent. Because I'm getting kind of, I don't know, round of 16 seems to be the norm, and I'm just like, okay,
but that's the fun. It's not the norm. They don't usually make it to the round of 16.
Well, they have. I mean,
they've made it to the round of 16, but they don't consistently do that. We still even have recently we don't have to go back very far to see them miss a World Cup.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
just even being consistent round of 16 team is a huge improvement for the U.S. men's national team and where this team is going. And I just don't think that that's something that should be taken for granted because it's really hard to do.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just getting a little. I'm getting a little greedy, and I'm thinking, I'm ready to take the next step. And you're right. There was a cycle they didn't even make the World Cup. But I feel like when starting in 2002, if I had to pick what is their normal result when they do make a World Cup, I would say round of 16. And then they get bounced. But yeah, I hear your point. I hear your point. Okay, well let's talk about the six. We have about 6 months now until the U.S. plays their first World Cup match. What's something over these next 6 months you're really excited to see or watch or to see how it unfolds?
Um, March, because I was actually having a discussion the other day on basically, or like Belgium and Portugal are arguably the U.S. men's national team's biggest games that they've played since the 2022 World Cup. And so,
Toughest opponents they've played. Absolutely.
well, I mean, just even biggest games in general, um, like, because it really just does come down to how much are you valuing consistently facing Mexico versus these games, because all their other big games have been against Mexico.
Yeah. And what is it? And so are you just, is it to test their level?
Yeah, because like even going into Copa America, for example, like we had the feeling that a train wreck might be coming after that game against Colombia, the 5-1 loss. And if something, even though there's time to course correct for it, if something bad happens in March, if they go in and like lose both of these games 3-1, everything leading up to their next game will be the U.S. men's national team isn't ready for the World Cup, and here's why. So I just don't think that it gets much bigger than what's coming on the horizon there, especially since like these are games that we've always wanted U.S. soccer to schedule, that just because of the soccer calendar, they haven't particularly been able to get with like UEFA Nations League and all that stuff going on. So now they're here, and despite them being friendlies, the team needs to perform in them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the thing in the run up to the World Cup. I'm most excited to see as well. I mean, these are two huge matchups. Um, and I want to see, we have a lot of positive momentum going. 5 match unbeaten streak, just came off the biggest win, I'd say, of Poch's era so far with that win over Uruguay. I want to see, can they continue that? Can they continue it? And these are going to be the toughest opponents they've faced. And then I'm also just really curious about the roster. You got to think the 26-man roster that Mauricio Pochettino puts together for March is going to look pretty close to what we ultimately
Yep.
see in June.
Yeah, no, that's part of my New Year's tasks are going to be making a roster prediction for that, but I have not gotten to digging through I guess who's going to get those final 5 spots, because about 21 of the spots feels pretty set. But it really is just figuring out like that third or fourth center back. Are you taking 4 fullbacks? It feels like you are. And Sebastian Berhalter versus Diego Luna, because it does feel like, and this is one of the player centric things to watch that Gio Reyna scoring against Paraguay was him making the World Cup squad.
All right, you're going there.
Um, yeah, because like I think Malik Tillman's still the number one attacking midfielder on this team right now, and he hasn't done anything for club or country to really say otherwise. But the question still with Diego Luna has been when the competition ticks up a notch, will he perform? And he hasn't actually like had that moment against a big non-CONCACAF team yet.
Hmm.
Whereas Reyna, even when he's not scoring, you can still see his quality on the pitch and his contributions to the team, and even how the team talks about playing with him as well. Like they do like having him out there and interchanging with him. So if he's playing at least relatively well for Gladbach, and it's also such a weird just thing to try to figure out because like Gladbach is not a very good team in general. So also some of the lack of counting stats isn't necessarily all on Arena. Um, but then there are moments that do make you realize that things have kind of taken a step back a little bit because he used to be a player that you would have thought would go into a bad team and immediately improve them. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't still have a lot to offer to the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah. I mean, that is something, another thing to keep an eye on in this run up, this next 6 months is how does Gio Reyna perform at Borussia Mönchengladbach? And a couple weeks ago, I did an episode with Yannick Sorgatz, who's a local reporter around Gladbach who covers the team, and he kind of gave me the inside scoop on Gio. And really, Gio was just starting these last 3-4 matches because of Flo Neuhaus's injury. And he expected that once Neuhaus is back, it to be kind of a wide open competition with him and Reyna. But it wasn't a given that Reyna's going to like be in the starting lineup. I know I think they were both in the starting lineup against Dortmund last week, but
Mm-hmm.
it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he kind of got the opportunity to start because of an injury with the other guy coming back. Did he prove to the coach that he needs to keep that spot? Is he going to be fighting all year for it? It
Yeah,
would be
I
nice.
assume he's going to be fighting all year for it, but
Yeah.
also that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. I'd like to see him win it. You'd like to see him kind of like take it,
Hmm.
and so that's something to keep an eye on over these next 6 months, for sure. Okay. Last thing I want to ask you about. Let's fast forward a year. It's December 31st, 2026. And I'm like, do you think the USMNT had a good year, Chuck? What would it take for you when you look back on 2026 to say this was a good year for the USMNT?
So I think there's three things because I mean I do think round of 16 is the expectation, but again, it's important to make it to the round of 16 and look like you belong and not get played off the pitch. Then, of course, there's the improvement from players, like for like even how you're talking about what you were talking about with Pepe earlier. Like, is he the actual starter again at PSV? Those are still going to be important things to watch on just like who takes those steps forward as players. Because like even like if Alex Freeman ends up sticking on the World Cup squad and makes some actual starts for the U.S. men's national team, it doesn't feel like he's going to be in Orlando City much longer.
Yes, his stock is rising.
And then do they have a coach? Because Pochettino's contract only runs like basically through the World Cup. And there is no guarantee that he will not go back to club soccer after that. And then you're going to need to already start figuring out what the next cycle looks like. And I know like teams like to kind of punt things down the road, like after a World Cup, and wait until maybe like spring, summer of 27 before actually getting a coach in line. But also assuming that if Pochettino's not coaching this team in 2027, that an American coach is probably coaching them in 2027. I don't see why it makes sense to wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit on the two things for me. Well, you said 3 points, and I agree with you about the players getting better. But the two things I had on my list were the World Cup result, and then setting ourselves up for the next cycle with the next coach. For me, the result, I'd like to see a quarterfinal and beat at least one elite team in the knockout rounds. Along the way, a European team, a South American like heavyweight. A top team. And then, yes, I find it very low probability that Mauricio Pochettino is going to continue to coach the U.S. after the World Cup. Even if he gets really excited and we have some amazing World Cup and he says yes, the chances of him making it 4 years, even if he does say yes before splitting to go back to the Premier League, I think is very, very low probability.
Yeah, a lot of European jobs are about to open.
Yeah, and if he has a good performance, I mean, he's already considered one of the top coaches in the world, but if he has a good performance with the U.S. at the World Cup, that's going to just make his stock, rise even more. And so, yeah, I'm going to anticipate he's going to leave. They're going to need to hire their next coach. Those hiring processes, they haven't gone well the last couple of cycles. I mean, after the failure of 2018, it took like almost a year or maybe even longer for them to hire Greg Berhalter. Then after 2022, there was a whole fiasco with I don't have to go into it. The whole reign of Berhalter thing, the rehire of Berhalter, that not working out. By the time I got Pochettino in, he only had a couple years to get ready. And so let's make the decision early, get somebody in there that has a full cycle to work with these players and develop a plan. And so I'm hoping U.S. Soccer after the World Cup can get that resolved, by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it would be very annoying if that drags on into 2027.
Yes, for sure. All right, Chuck. Well, I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your Blue Sky account, which is at Chuck Yeah with an extra A at the end. .bsky.social, and that link will be in there because I know it's a little hard for me to spit that out here on the podcast. But Chuck Yeah on Blue Sky and your work at CBS Sports. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Happy New Year to you as well.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.